everyone, and thank you so much for joining us again for another episode in TTF Talks. Today, we're incredibly thrilled and honoured to have with us the CEO of the US Travel Association, who has an amazing 34-year history with Marriott in the industry and started as a lifeguard in New Jersey for Marriott. It just goes to show what a terrific industry this is and how far you can come. Thank you so much for joining us, Roger Dow. Good morning.
Good morning, Margie. Always good to see you. Thank you. You're a dear friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. Look, I think this has been an incredibly difficult, and in many cases tragic situation for the tourism industry worldwide. And in the US in particular, you are still grappling with the impacts of COVID-19 and what the longer term impacts will be. What was the first inkling of how big this was going to be for the US travel industry that you were kind of conscious of and started working with?
Well, we began watching what was going on in China, and I recall just having each day my assistant, who happens to be Chinese, giving me a count on how many cases, and then I said, this thing could get serious, but that was in January. We thought, well, you know, it could be a little problem because we depend on China for so much inbound business, but never did I expect those days in January to be where we are today. Just seems like 10 years ago, but was just 2 months ago.
So from your perspective, do you think, you know, did people respond quickly and understand how big this was going to be in the wider industry? I mean, from your perspective, was it something you had to really get people tuned into, that it was going to be a big blow for the industry?
Well, I think the battle we have all the time in the United States is getting our elected officials to understand how everything is linked to travel and tourism. Nobody bought a second home or a first home without traveling there first. No one decided what university to go to until they traveled there. Nobody decided to move a company somewhere until they went there. And it's just how tied we are. And I think right now the US economy has realized how absolutely tied they are to travel. When there's no travel, the rest of the industry, no matter what it is, suffers.
And in a strange kind of way, I mean, it's an opportunity for the industry, I suppose, to get governments and elected officials to, in fact, focus on that importance and how much we do make a contribution to the wider economy.
There's no question about it. In fact, on March the 17th, I was at the White House with President Trump, Vice President Pence, and our Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, with 7 CEOs from the travel industry and 2 theme parks, talking about how important this was going to be and how badly we were going to be hurt financially and how we needed to really think about all the workers that were going to be out of work. And that was March 17th. I left Washington, D.C. on March 19th. I live in Florida and Washington. I commute back and forth. And that was the last day I was in Washington, March 19th, and will not be back there unless I end up going up for another meeting at the White House till probably the middle of May.
Yes, I mean, lots of people ask me, our equivalent is Canberra. Am I missing being in Canberra? Possibly not. Are you missing being in Washington, Roger?
And the answer is probably not also. The only thing I miss about not being in Washington, I have a daughter and a newly married daughter who's going to be having a baby in about 7 or 8 months. She lives in Washington, so we don't get to see her except the way you and I are conversing today. But no, you can only take just so much of being in Washington, D.C., and then you have to get away. That's why it's a nice balance, living in Florida and working in D.C. and going back and forth.
So you mentioned before the size of the China market and its value in the US from a travelling perspective, whether that be visiting friends and relatives because their children are being educated there, or leisure or business travellers. How big a proportion of the US market does China represent? And are you concerned about how that market is rebuilt? In Australia's case, for example, China is our #1 market, and it's a question we're grappling with at the moment.
Yeah, in the US, as far as visitors, China is like our #4 or 5 market. Canada and Mexico are obviously very big, each with about 20 million visitors annually. Then the UK, then Japan, then China. But China spends much more than all of them. We have 3 million visitors from China last year, and they spent more than 22 million visitors from Canada together. So it's a very important market. And I've watched it over 10 years grow from 250,000 Chinese visitors to 3 million, now to 0.
Feel your pain. For us, it's sort of over 1 million to nothing as well in terms of Chinese visitors. So, and our second largest market, of course, is New Zealand. And there's a great deal of conversation here in Australia now about the potential at some point in the next 6 months to open our borders for international travel to New Zealand. When do you think, is it being speculated on what the date will be for borders to open again for the US?
What's going to happen, I think, in the US is, first of all, recovery, and it's a matter of when recovery actually starts. They're starting to phase opening a couple of states, and but to non-essential travel, that probably will be a few weeks to a month from now, and it's going to open in regions. People may not travel as much to New York City, for example, than they may to South Dakota, where they have no COVID virus whatsoever. But it's going to change the travel market, at least for the next 6 months, to be a very domestic market. Americans are going to stay home, and they're going to stay within our borders, at least for 6 months, maybe to a year. Gone are the trips where they would go to Italy or Spain or to Australia or New Zealand, and that will change. But the same thing is going to happen. Australians and folks from New Zealand are going to pretty much stay close to home. The borders I see opening almost in the reverse order that they were shut. So I see Canada and Mexico opening first, then UK, Ireland, and then EU right about the same time, maybe together. Germany's doing some very good things in containment, and this Sweden is also. And then last to come will be Asia and China.
And so just on this holidaying aspect, what do you think is the sort of sentiment and level of confidence of the American public to actually take a holiday, whether it's domestically in the first instance or overseas? Because this almost seems like the sleeper in the argument, doesn't it? The tap's not just going to go on again. It will be, do people have the money? Do people have the inclination?
Yeah, that is definitely going to happen. One of the good news for a lot of our locations is that American traveler who has a lot of money and spends a lot of money on travel outside the United States will spend that at home. We've done a lot of research, and the traveling public, about 68% of them say they still plan to vacation, but it might be different. It might be different. They may be reticent to get on a plane. They may drive somewhere. That may be a decision. They'll slowly come back, but we're seeing uncertainty and fear. And what we've got to do to get people in America traveling again is really what we're working on right now, is get a coordinated set of protocols for the entire industry, so they can look at and accept the airlines, the hotels, the convention centers, the theme parks and attractions and restaurants all have a similar set of protocol, so they understand. And it can't be, in the US, I keep saying, it can't be 50 different states and 500 different cities and 50 different companies, each with their own thing, because the consumer wants confidence. And also, we've done some research that says if just the travel industry comes back, it'll make a 20% difference. In fact, 50% say they won't believe us. If government says so, about 20, 25%, and again, question whether they'll believe them. If the health community says come back, about 30-some%. But if we combine two of those, it rises to about 55%. If we combine all three with a similar message that's trusted and believable, it jumps to 75%. So that's why it's extremely important that government, industry, and the health community come together with a common message that's credible, believable, and consistent.
Absolutely. The trust factor, I think, is going to be vital everywhere in the world. In Australia, I think our industry is just starting to move into that recovery phase and very focused on those standards that you mentioned and how they'll work with government in this space. So saying there's challenges for all of us, but there's always opportunities in these situations as well. What do you think the opportunities are for the industry to do things differently that might be a positive legacy out of this situation?
Well, I think the opportunity is going to come that our venues, which are extraordinarily clean already, cruise ships, extraordinarily clean, are even going to be more so. I think there'll be a new officer in most big companies called the health and safety officer that probably never existed before. The same before September 11th, we didn't have all the security people that we have now. So I think it's going to be a change in how we do things, but some of the good things is technology is going to take a big leap forward. Everything from facial recognition, biometrics, data sharing, putting things on your phone is going to change. I think we'll see a change where people walk into a hotel with their smartphone. That person says, that's Margie Osmond. She's one of our VIP clients. We're going to check her into a suite. We're going to give her her favorite wine and all of that. And she's going to push something on her phone and her key is going to come out of a little dispenser. All those things are industries that don't exist today. The tech does and all that, but will come out of this. The other thing that I think will come out of it is communications. We've been forced to communicate this way. We'd much rather get together face to face, but I think it's going to allow us to expand a lot of our meetings. I think a lot of our conventions might have several thousand people, but they might have another 3,000 or 4,000 people listening to the general session or to a session they want to hear, and expand the audience and get that group saying, next year, I want to be there in person. The other thing it's caused our industry to work together. Not that we didn't work together, but much more. I mean, I'm on calls all the time with the travel agent community, with the people who plan meetings and events, with the trade show people, with the airline people. And it's caused us to communicate much more and realize how related we are to another. You can't have travel without airlines. You can't have airlines without people who want to stay in hotels. You can't have people going to theme parks if they don't stay in a hotel. And on. We've realized how interdependent we are. And I think that's a positive that's come out of it. And we'll be smarter and better. When September 11th happened, people said, no one will travel internationally anymore. They'll be afraid to. And for a while they didn't. And now I saw the past 10 years, the greatest growth in international travel I've ever seen. So I expect good things to come out of this. It's not going to come quickly. It's going to come slowly, but I expect a lot of good things to come out of this. We'll look back and say, you know, we're better off now than we were because of this. It's hard to realize at this moment because things are really, really hard, and don't mean to make light of it, but boy, oh boy, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, but that's an incredibly positive and uplifting note for us perhaps to end this chat on. Roger, can I say thank you so much again for agreeing to give us some time today, and also a big thank you from TTF for your ongoing friendship and support of us. It makes a real difference to be able to have these kinds of conversations. So thank you very much, Roger.
Well, and thank you, and thank you. We do it. I get people see you locally, but I get to see you internationally, and you've got a big voice and a role there, and you're engaged, and I think that's great. And it's great for us. We've been sharing so many good ideas, and you've been a little bit ahead of us on many ideas, and I've taken a few, stolen them, and put them in practice. So thank you.
Well, thank you again, Roger, and you stay safe and take care.
Thank you.